Come on in, everybody. Let's talk about Antifa getting absolutely exposed in Texas here. You know, political battles are won in the courts. Returning America to the people and out of the hands of far-left extremists will also happen in the courts. It's here where the Trump administration makes such a big impact. This is where the agenda for all of us on the right gets carried out and made effective for the whole country. It's a big part of keeping American culture intact. Sometimes it starts with a victory in the Supreme Court, sometimes with a victory in a lower court. We're currently seeing what might possibly be a huge victory in the Supreme Court unfold right now. Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act and the notion of disparate impact is likely going to be revoked. If things go right in the Supreme Court, and it sure does look like they will, we're going to see Republicans gain somewhere between 19 to 27 seats in the House. Democrats will have no choice but to concede what we all already knew, that they've been redistricting states and turning them blue by means of deception. It's been going on for years. They will be forced to reset the clock and bring back the honesty of the districts that were in place before their manipulation. We'll have a strong lock on control of the House for many years to come, and this is how effective, long-lasting political change takes place. Besides the Supreme Court now, we're looking at another monumental victory, but this time in a lower court. It's in Texas, and it involves the FBI arresting 2 members of Antifa. As you know, Trump just recently declared Antifa a terrorist organization, and he did it precisely, without a doubt, for this reason right here: to get them indicted in the courts, to put them under the scrutiny of federal forces. We're witnessing an historical moment. We now have a president who fights back. Antifa is a coordinated group of violent, anarcho-communist extremists whose main priority is engaging with just about anything they irrationally misperceive as fascist. They just got caught in a possible attempted murder case with an officer who was shot in the neck. Here's the video.
So the quick history: the shooting happened back on the night of the 4th of July. This is where an Alvarado police officer was shot in the neck, but did end up surviving. FBI Director Kash Patel posted today on X that it is now the first time that the FBI has arrested someone that the agency has identified as Antifa-aligned anarchist violent extremists, and terrorism charges now as a result have been brought. So that takes us to the indictment itself. Cameron Arnold and Zachary Evitz both stand accused of providing material support to terrorists, as well as the attempted murder of officers and also employees of the U.S. and discharging a firearm during a crime of violence. In the indictment itself, the Justice Department claims, and I'll quote here, the Antifa cell was heavily armed with over 50 firearms that they purchased in Fort Worth, Grand Prairie, Dallas, and elsewhere. It goes on to say they used an encrypted messaging app to coordinate with each other and use monikers to hide their names. And the indictment continues to claim that some members had done some reconnaissance work, knew the locations of the security cameras at the facility. The indictment also reads that 10 firearms were eventually brought to Prairie Land that night, along with medical kits and fireworks as well.
So the bottom line is a group of Antifa members rounded up a cache of guns that was most likely provided by the John Brown Gun Club of Texas. Most likely. This is a far-left, pseudo-revolutionary, and all-around misguided gun group, by the way. Then they surveyed the Prairie Land Detention Center and drew up plans. When the time came, guns went off, and 1 officer was shot in the neck. Now charges of terrorism are properly being filed. All of this is out in the open now, and what does the left do? Yeah. They want you to believe that Antifa doesn't exist. This is how delusional they are.
There's no Antifa. This is an entirely imaginary organization. There is not an Antifa. This is no different than if they announced they rounded up a dozen Decepticons. We've captured the Chupacabra, everyone.
Here's Keith Ellison taunting Trump with the Antifa handbook. Jimmy Kimmel is such a hack. The fact that he can stand there and just regurgitate nonsense is astounding. And you know what? Honestly, the chances are that none of these guys on the left genuinely believe any of this themselves. They know Antifa does what it does, and they know Antifa is supplied and funded the way it is, but they don't really care. They want their boots on the ground to do their dirty work for them. Deep down in a private place that they won't share out loud, they need and want groups like Antifa to get violent for them. Others on the left are craftier, of course. They focus their wording on deflective claims like, Antifa is a loosely organized group of individuals, so we shouldn't take them seriously. I mean, here's BBC claiming that Antifa is merely a loose, leaderless affiliation of mostly far-left activists. Well, none of that is true, but let's sum up their logic. Since Antifa doesn't have an organized government structure with paid employees who earn their way, and since Antifa doesn't have some type of bureaucracy that these employees check into to work with on a daily basis, we're not supposed to believe that they're a terrorist organization? I mean, is that for real? This makes absolutely no sense. The reality is that almost all terrorist organizations out there don't have any type of public governmental structure where employees check in. When was the last time we saw members of ISIS bring out their government ID badges and swipe their way in for a hard day's work? This is a ridiculous standard to set if we're going to figure out how to measure up a terrorist organization. Legally, we already have those standards. We have the standards for what constitutes terrorism, and Antifa meets them. This is what the FBI uses as their determination. Domestic terrorists are people or organizations that commit violent criminal acts in order to further ideological goals stemming from domestic influences such as those of a political, religious, social, racial, or environmental nature. So, where's the argument? The left doesn't have any. And besides legality, let's talk about their funding, because these guys are funded. Just how does Antifa maintain their political presence? If all these people are truly just a band of disgruntled citizens, like the left claims, they shouldn't be able to be so politically active all the time. They should have jobs and families, right? Organizing protests and showing up to get violent would surely be out of their means. But, where there's a will, there's a way, and the left will find a source of funding to make sure that they get violent whenever they feel they need to. Welcome to the International Anti-Fascist Defense Fund. This is a group that has handed out over $250,000 to more than 800 people in 26 different countries, or so they claim, at least according to their website. They pay hospital bills, court fines, and lawyers' fees in order to keep their derelicts basically on the streets. It's probably safe to say that all this is true, though. I mean, I'm not going to deny it, but the reality is this is just the tip of the iceberg, because in their quest to convince the public that Antifa doesn't exist or isn't really that big of a deal, the left is leaving out the most important part of it all: the funding by the wealthy. These guys are part of a very well-funded machine. Like any other political action being taken, the money is the beating heart of it all. Take a look at this video of a roundtable with President Trump. He hosted the Government Accountability Institute. This is a group of well-informed and well-connected people who basically reported to Trump on the money trails of far-left extremism. It's a 2.5-minute video, and you know what? I kind of got to be honest. This is supposed to be my channel where I earn my way and respect by speaking for myself. But these guys are a heck of a lot more connected than I am, and they are literally talking to Trump, so you probably want to hear from them. Here's a report on what money is funding groups like Antifa and so many more.
This is not just a story about violence and chaos, as you alluded to, Mr. President. This is a money story. And at the Government Accountability Institute, my colleague and I, Peter Schweitzer and and our team, we followed the money, and we followed it to the top of what we call the protest industrial complex, Riot Inc. And we found a network of NGOs. It's not just the Soros network, the Open Society network, it's other funding networks, the Arabella funding network, the Tides funding network, Neville Roy Singham and his network, Foreign Cash. And it's also big left-wing funders. Some of them are not citizens of this country. Mr. Hans-Jörg Wyss of Switzerland. They're pouring money into this entire ecosystem. And so I want to share 3 money facts with you about what we call Riot Inc. Number 1, like any corporation, Riot Inc. has many divisions. It doesn't just have the Antifa boots on the ground division. It has PR divisions. It has marketing divisions. It has a very well-funded legal division to get these boots on the ground back on the streets as quickly as possible. But it does have those investors that I mentioned. Number 2, we have identified dozens of radical organizations, not just the decentralized Antifa organizations, but dozens of radical organizations that have received more than $100 million from the Riot Inc. investors. These would be the lawyer groups. These would be the groups that advocate for calling good, honest Americans fascists, et cetera. And then 3, I think the most shocking thing is that we have found that more than $100 million in U.S. taxpayer funding has flowed into these funding networks, including at least $4 million to these very groups themselves, not just Antifa types, but there was an event in Atlanta called Stop Cop City. Over 60 rioters were charged with domestic terrorism. These groups received money for that from both the billionaire class as well as taxpayer money. So one other thing, this money helps fund the decentralized crowdfunding platforms. These are ways that Antifa, the John Brown Gun Club of Elm Fork, which had links to that attack on the ICE facility, the Socialist Rifle Association, and just because they don't have LLCs or EIN numbers doesn't mean they can't get paid. Some of these funding platforms, crowdfunding platforms, are funded by this network that we call Riot Inc.
So there it is. Big money is what is funding all of these garbage groups, and Trump is doing his job by taking out the trash. The courts in Texas will hopefully go beyond indicting and actually imprison these Antifa members if they are found guilty. The time has come for reckoning. We've seen too many cases of people on the right losing their jobs, getting arrested, harassed, doxxed, just because of their values. Bank accounts, lines of credit, and means of making a living have been revoked. The left abused our system of justice for the past 15 years in a really bad way, especially during COVID. And they've also shown that they have a problem with violence. The shoe is now on the other foot, everyone. All right, that's it. Once again, if you got this far, I really do appreciate it. Any likes, comments, subscriptions, anything like that always helps. I really appreciate those too. Thanks, and see you in my next one.